Welcome back everybody to BeamNG.drive, and today we're going to be dealing with the Gavril H15 Vanster. So this was made between 1993 and 2002. It's got 194 horsepower, 277 pounds-feet of torque from its 4.5 litre V8 engine, and it weighs 5,137 pounds. This isn't the lowest version of the car because there is also a 4.1 litre inline 6, though I have no idea why an inline 6 engine would be compatible with this car, because the whole point of these vans is to have a very limited amount of bonnet space, so there's enough for the passenger and driver, and then obviously all the cargo space in the back, which this has plenty of, as you can see. So yeah, most capacious sized van, but yeah, this being a commercial vehicle should also be quite tough. So yeah, might well make mince work of or easy work of this suspension course. Then obviously we will be rolling it over a few times, crashing it into some explosive barrels, and then hitting a cinder block wall. Before obviously we'll move on to the crash hole. So yeah, let's see how it deals with all the suspension testing and some of the little jumps and stuff. Now granted, this van is probably going to be more suitable when it would be fully loaded. So I'm not sure how the suspension is going to react when, it's got nothing in there and yet it's being bounced around. In fact, it already feels like we're a little bit leaning to one side. As you can see, it the rear end loves to bounce back up when it comes down. See what damage that has caused so far. Minimal bodywork damage. Looks like the wheels are still mostly lined up, which is good. Whoa, bouncy, bouncy. Seems to be mostly holding up now, though. We have lost our indicators, which is not a good thing for a large vehicle like this. It's not got the most sophisticated underneath stuff going for it. It's just rear wheel drive, automatic gearbox, and not particularly advanced diff either. I think we've lost some suspension travel at the front now, I think. It does look decidedly a little bit lower there. Which is not going to help with the next part, that's for sure. Suspension working overtime there. Well, the car still is, the van still seems to be holding up, so let's give it some more punishment. Oh, there goes the drive line. Well, that's always likely to be the weak point of this vehicle, because obviously the drive line is quite long. So yeah, that is the ultimate death of this vehicle, but everything else seems to be holding up fine. The suspension is mostly still intact, the bodywork is mostly okay, so yeah, in all of that regard it's fine. It's just obviously the driveline being really rather long is quite a weak point. So yeah. Nonetheless, let's get over to this side of the map where we're going to roll it over a few times and then see how it does with explosives and then a cinder block wall. Now, being the shape it is, this probably will roll quite a fair bit. And it does have a lot of weight to it as well, so it's whether or not that roof is going to be able to handle all that weight coming down on it. There are the barrels, that's the cinder block wall. Right. It's quite a heavy amount of damage on the roof already. But, surprise, surprise, it's not. I don't think going to go in for another roll there. No, that is very surprising. It's acted like the moonhook there, where it's rolled the once and then come down safely onto its wheels. So, that is a big surprise. Right, let's see if it can handle a second rollover. Oh, it would if I didn't drive off the edge. Right. Let's see what happens second time round. Now I am also worried about those wheels being bent and snapped off, because in some scenarios when crashing this car in my own time, it has had its wheels break off in certain regards, and we are rolling a fair bit more this time. A hell of a lot more. This is why I like using the auto rollover ramp sled as well, because the sled goes at the same speed all the time, so there's no differentiations between that. There's no, you know, unfair speeds that are going to be occurring with it between vehicles or between rollover tests with one vehicle, so it's a good reason to use that sled over, you know, just a normal ramp. And yeah, we've taken more bodywork damage there. The doors have now opened and the roof is not the same shape it was originally, but we still drive. And we are pulling a little bit to the left, but not drastically. Oh, slightly damaged the exhaust there. I guess that means that some of the suspension has been lost, dropped down a little bit. See if we can survive this third and final rollover. Which it looks like it has done. Seems like on this side it doesn't like to roll over as much, but on the other side it does, so. But again, I guess that might be down to how the roof has been damaged and how that makes the car roll, the vehicle roll. So, yeah. Overall, that has dealt with that really rather nicely. In passenger-wise, though, yeah, the roof is quite down towards us, but I don't think that would be fatal, maybe, especially if you've got your seatbelt in. But it is quite low down, and any further, and it would start to jeopardise whoever's driving and in the vehicle overall. So yeah, but overall I'd say that's a pass. Still deliberating whether or not it's a pass for the grid map itself, because obviously this failed pretty, not completely quickly, but it was hardly a lengthy run on there. Oh dear, missed just how fast we were going there. Just trying to get lined up with the barrels. Let's reload the vehicle. And let's get going. Is it gonna survive or is it not? Let's find out. That is fine. That's probably some of the least damage that we've taken from those barrels. Some vehicles have their wheels completely bent up or obliterated. Engines sometimes die, so the fact that all we've seemingly got is bodywork damage is fairly impressive. Yeah, the fenders have been blown off, or at least peeled back. The bumper has gone. We've lost a little bit of suspension travel on the front left wheel. The door has been doors have been peeled at the front, and we've lost the rear bumper. That is basically it. So yeah, that is overall impressive. We are also pulling a little bit to the left. But again, that's no surprise given the state of that wheel. So yeah, that is overall impressive. And again, a pass, just like the rollover sleds. Let's see what happens when we hit the cinder block wall. Imagine this will just blow right through it, weighing more than 5,000 pounds. Yeah, I've dealt with that mostly okay. The windscreen has been pushed back a fair old bit though. So much so that the roof has started to be misshapen. But it's the cinder blocks wouldn't have come through the window, which is the main point there. And yeah, there's been no intrusion in terms of the legs or the steering wheel either. So yeah, the van has taken a lot of damage from that, but the van is taking the damage and not whoever's inside. So yeah, nonetheless, let's get onto the crash hall, where we're going to do a small overlap crash test at 30, 40 and 60 miles an hour. So yeah, let's get there and see what happens. So here we are at the crash hall. And this is obviously quite a heavyweight vehicle, so there's going to be a lot of momentum following the front end of this car with the rear end, and yeah, depending on how this vehicle has been built, then yeah, we could very well see this strong rear end that is meant to deal with heavy loads and things that might well be thrown about a fair bit, crush the front softer end. So yeah, we'll have to see, but nonetheless, let's get on at 30 miles an hour and see what happens. Should deal with this fine. There's plenty of bodywork up front to deal with a 30 mile an hour impact, I imagine. Or maybe not. That is surprisingly bad. I was expecting a lot better, especially just from a 30 mile an hour impact, which I don't think any car, or not very many cars, have actually failed. So yeah, that is actually a failure, I am afraid to say. That is a surprise. The steering wheel has come right into the past the driver's seat, or where the driver would be, and yeah, it's also speared slightly off to the right as well, which would not help in terms of airbag deployment. So yeah, that is a bit of a shame there. I was expecting a lot better. So now let's see how bad it gets when we increase the speed up to 40. I imagine this isn't going to go very well. I think it's only really with the small vehicles that we've seen a fail at 30 miles an hour, you know, like the Polski Fiat and the maybe the Autobello. I think they didn't do very well at 30 either. But for a big vehicle like this to be struggling at these speeds is a real surprise, and again does show how the vehicle has been made, how I was worried it would be made, because as you can see, there is a clear distinction between the rear end part and the front end part, because right down here, right just after the door, is where obviously the strong bit begins and the soft bit ends, and yeah, you can see that the hard bit of the vehicle is really just not taking any of the damage whatsoever, and is forcing the front end to be just squished up and demolished, basically. So yeah, that's just a sign of poor engineering, really, and poor design, which, yeah, as you can see, is making these poor crash tests happen. So let's see how disastrous it's going to be at 60 miles an hour, which plenty of vehicles has been bad enough, but they haven't been bad at 30 or 40 usually. So let's see what happens here. Oh, yeah, you can just see even at 60 mile an hour there's no intrusion really on the strong part of the van, where all the stuff that you'd be carrying around would be. It's all about the front part being utterly wiped out at the expense of what is up front. Somehow the vehicle still moves, which I guess is something at least, but yeah, the dashboard is literally in the driver's seat now. Everything has been twisted round, and yeah, you can just see that there's been no major intrusion into the rear end. Yeah, it's probably twisted up a little bit, but you can still see where the strong part end begins and the soft part ends, and yeah, that is really poor design work, really, to be honest. So yeah, hopefully newer vans are not like that, because that is really rather bad. So yeah, that is our first complete fail, I think, on this crash haul. So yeah, a big fat 0 for the Vanster there. Nonetheless, let's get out onto the highway and see how this deals with two similarly weighted vehicles at 60 mile an hour, and then one that really isn't. So here we are at the highway. So there's only really two vehicles that are similarly weighted to this, and that is going to be the Roma, which we're going to go up against first, and then the D-Series. So yeah, the Roma actually weighs exactly the same as this, so it's going to be interesting to see how two exact same weighted vehicles, but completely different in terms of engineering and design, can do. So let's see what happens. I imagine this is going to end up like the small overlap crash test, in that the rear end is going to be the stronger part and really impact negatively on the front part. Also forgot to tell you the acceleration time. So yeah, 0 to 60 for this is 10.6 seconds, 0 to 100 is 39.9 seconds, and it to 109 miles an hour. And yeah, oh, that is quite painful for both cars there, but I think we've overall survived that, surprisingly. I guess because the full width of the vehicle is now playing a part in this. It's slightly stronger than, you know, just the one side. But yeah, that's still devastating for both cars, but I'd still rather be in the Roma, to be honest. Yeah, the Roma is typically the tougher of the two vehicles. And you can see from the interior that the Roma is a little bit better off. Steering wheel is practically where it was in the Roma, whereas here it's shifted forwards and a little bit to the left. So yeah, not 100% there for the H-Series, but I'm going to give it a pass. Right, let's see what it does up against a D-Series, which, like I said, is only one of the other vehicles that kind of weighs the same as this. Let's just try and find one that does. So we're looking for 5137, or at least as near as makes no difference to that. If we can only get a little bit heavier, then that's fine. I think we'll go for this D15 V8 crew cab. It weighs a little bit more, but only by 22 pounds. So yeah, I don't think that really matters, and it is at least a little bit older than the H-Series there, so that might well make a difference. Luckily this and the car it's going up against pretty much drive straight. I'm going to slow right down there because we were right on the verge of crashing. Oh, Well, again, I think the opposing vehicle has gotten off with that a little bit better. Although we've both been severely damaged. But yeah. Again, there's been quite a bit of intrusion into the passenger compartment there. But overall, still reasonable. Especially considering we've seen the worst of what that vehicle can do, or not do. Whereas here, it's pretty much fine, to be honest. Some of the dashboard has been damaged, but I'd rather the dashboard be damaged than anyone inside. So, yeah, I think the H-Series has got another pass again there. Not by a wide margin, but a margin regardless. So, yeah, now let's see what happens when we go up against something that is far, far heavier. And we're going to go up against the T-Series. I think we're going to have to go for the ram plow version though. It's not the heaviest version, but we're going to take the ram plow off it, and it should at least be able to get up to 60 in the allotted distance that we have going on. So yeah, let's just get rid of that ram plow. Just put a normal front bumper on it, as you can see. Here comes the pain. Oh! Again, you can see that the rear end of the van is such a strong piece of, you know, bodywork that and chassis that it's barely taken any damage, even from a 60-mile-an-hour semi. So yeah. Really does show how massive a difference between the passenger compartment and the area where all the equipment and stuff that you would be carrying would be, because there is no livable space in there whatsoever. You just look at that. It's just nothing. Now granted, most cars or vehicles would not be able to survive a 60-mile-an-hour impact with a semi, but they would at least hopefully be better in condition than that. Whereas this is just, yeah, been obliterated. The engine's gone, the driveline's gone, we've lost a wheel at least, and yeah, there's just nothing left of where the driver or passenger would be. In fact, the impact has been that violent that the rear window, one of the rear windows at least, has been smashed in. Shows how much energy has been transferred from the through the front and then through the rest of the vehicle, rather than around the people in the front to the rear, or at least around and through the roof and whatever else. But it's just all the energy has gone into the passenger compartment rather than anywhere else. So yeah, that is disastrous, and yeah, overall not a great vehicle. It didn't survive the grid map all that well because the driveline went quite quickly, but it did do fine with the rollover ramp and the explosive barrels and the cinder block wall. So it got 3 there, but then it got nothing at all in the crash hall because, yeah, it really wasn't safe even at 30. But it did get 2 here, so yeah, that is that. But yeah, 5 out of only 10 is really not a good score whatsoever, or 5 out of 9. Yeah, 5 out of 9 is not a good score whatsoever. So yeah. No, 5 out of 10. Yeah, sorry. But yeah, so only average really, but a very poor average at that. Nonetheless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.